Alright guys, I got a huge box of Wasting Talent books in the mail. And I'm going to be sending them out if I owe them to you. If you've been waiting on them for a while, I'm sending everything out tomorrow, including my Patreons that are in the VIP tier. If you're a sponsor, you get a Sinister Monopoly lithograph that's worth over $1,000. And if you waited on a book for any ridiculous amount of time, I'm sending you one too. So you're coming out on top, and I do apologize. From now on, I'm not selling books. So don't email me. I'm not doing them. I'll give them away as raffle prizes once in a while, but that's it. If you won one in a raffle, please remind me as well. I'm ready to send them finally. RyanLeone313@gmail.com. They're going out tomorrow. So if you see this, please email me. And again, I apologize. Books take forever to get. And if I send them out, I'll include a tracking number so that you guys can track them. Thank you for that. And please like, comment, subscribe, dislike, leave bad comments, share on other social media platforms. Doesn't really matter. You're helping me, and I really, really do appreciate it. We're right there at the 10,000 mark. We're about to get there. Things are going good in my life, even outside of the YouTube, Patreon universe. I'm making moves, and seems like I'm on a good run right now with luck. So, thank you guys. Be sure to check out patreon.com/RyanLeone. Extra content starts at 10 cents a day. So, let's get into the story. I was told to get my stuff together because I was going to be transported to Lompoc. Now, you know, they tell you late night, around midnight. And then it's a very long process. It's a horrible day. Prison transport, whether you're in the state system or the federal system, is hellacious. It's horrible. You know that feeling you get at the DMV where you're like sitting there if you don't make an appointment? Even if you do make an appointment sometimes and you're sitting there for hours and you're just like rocking and you have anxiety and you can smell body odor and farts, and then you get there and you ask them like a simple question. They're like, oh, I don't know how you renew your license. I just started working here. It seems like everyone at the DMV just started fucking working there. It's like, geez, I just feel like it can't be that hard. Well, it feels like that, except you're shackled, handcuffed, and the DMV's moving towards a prison. So it's way worse than that. But that's the only way that I can really describe it if you haven't been to jail or prison on like prison. You know, you don't do those all-day transports, I guess, unless you're getting extradited. But they're really bad. And it starts very early in the morning. You make your way through MDCLA, so they bring you back to that bullpen-style area. And you have your laundry bag, you know, a satchel. I had like hundreds of atomic fireballs in mine. I left probably like 80% of the store that I had accumulated to Mike, which I thought was a nice thing to do because he didn't have commissary before I got there. And I'm such a good guy. So solid. And so you get down to this little bullpen area and you're with other people that are transporting. Now, a lot of people have been stuck in this office building in downtown LA for years. So they're really excited just to be going. Not everyone. Some people are starting a life sentence going in there, and a lot of people are going to prison for the first time and they're really scared. So it's a mixed bag, but a lot of people are happy. I was happy to get out of there. I was looking forward to Lompoc because I'd heard so much cool stuff about Lompoc. Now, Lompoc has a minimum security camp, which I've had friends that have gone to, and they've told me the most ridiculous stories about it. They said that one of the jobs you can get at the minimum security camp, and this is where like the Watergate guys went. They were part of the Nixon campaign or administration, whoever got indicted in that whole thing. They gone to this camp, and he was telling me, you know, this is in recent years, his experience there, and he was telling me that you could get a job driving a car outside of the prison and like going to the gas station to pick up stuff for the COs. There were other jobs where I guess if you're a CO and you work at Lompoc, they have like an entire block of like CO houses. It's like some guard commune. Ugh. Sounds horrible. But, you know, it's like one of the incentives. If you work for the Bureau of Prisons, they're like, well, you can come have free housing in Lompoc, California, which is arguably one of the worst places in California. It's right up there with Bakersfield and Fresno. I'm sorry, I don't mean any disrespect, but it's the truth. If you live there, you know that. And I heard that they have a job, like, you know, they'll renovate houses and they'll form a crew. You know, there's plumbers, carpenters, painters, inmates. And they'll shuttle them from the minimum security camp to this house. They were telling me they were getting strippers and they were having keg parties there and they were getting like ounces of cocaine sent, like delivered by UPS, like to this house that they were working on. And there's no fences. It's insane. I mean, minimum security federal camp is crazy. And if you have any violence on your record, you can't get there. Also, sex offenders can't go to the very minimum camp. This is like where Cohen's going, or I believe that's where Wesley Snipes went. Martha Stewart went to a camp. You know, Wolf of Wall Street guy went to a camp. They showed in that movie. He's like driving around on a golf cart or something. I know some of them have swimming pools. People have told me there's like co-ed ones. If you're like just a superstar snitch, you get to go do time with bitches. I don't know if that's true, but I know there's ones with pools. I know there's ones with like mini golf. It's absurd. Now then, there's a low security prison at Lompoc. This is a complex. So anytime in federal prison they have multiple yards in one huge area, it's called a complex, and then the yard is called a compound. So like when you hit like Victorville, you're going on the compound, but the whole thing is a complex, if that makes sense. So at Lompoc, they have the minimum security camp, and then they have a low. They have two lows, I think. Two lows? I don't know. But I know they do have a low security there. Now, at a low security, they have a fence. There's child molesters there, and they have like a weight pile, and it's just much nicer. It's not controlled movements, so you can just kind of walk, if it's not count time, you can just like leave your unit and go to the weight pile. You don't have to wait for the hourly movements. You know, when we've talked about this, when they get on the PA and they're like, okay, it's a 1:30 one-way recreation move to education and the yard. And then you'll see it like a herd of inmates like leaving from the housing units and going to either the education or going to the yard, and you'll go through metal detectors. At a low, it's not like that, but there's hardly any violence at a low or at a camp. And I've heard that they're pretty, it's cakewalk. You know, it's not like a medium or a USP, where violence can be pretty frequent depending on where you are. And like I said, they have sex offenders there. And I've always asked, like, I have solid friends, and we've talked about this too, there's not protective custody in federal prison. So I have friends that are like, yo, dude, if I saw Chomo, I'd kill him. I would kill him. And then, like, you get a call from them, like, 8 months later, and they're like, hey, brother, I just got out. I was at Terminal Island. I was at Lompoc. I'm like, really? You were programming with sex offenders? They're like, yeah. But, like, we just didn't talk to them. Like, let me give you an example. If they wanted to use the TV room, we wouldn't let them. I'm like, but you just walked around with pedophiles? Oh, but we didn't talk to them. And if they said anything to me, I would kick their ass. I'm solid. Oh, okay. So, thankfully, I was never in the low situation, but I was at Oxford, so I dealt with something that was similar. We didn't have paperwork on any sex offenders there. Like, at Lowe's, like, they're like flagrant about their sex crimes. They're like, yeah, I went on a serial molestation spree in Reno back in '98, and yeah, I'm at the end of my sentence now. At Oxford, it wasn't like that, you know. Sex offenders, they really, like, camouflaged in. Sometimes they doctored their paperwork. I mean, you kind of knew who was who because they'd be so spooky, you know. You'd, like, walk by their cell and they'd just be, like, sitting on the bed being like, having panic attacks every day. Like, oh, my God, they're going to find out. They're going to find out that I'm a weirdo. but you don't know who's who. And that's why when I was at a place like that, I was going home. Don't ask, don't tell, unless it's my cellie. And that ended up costing me a year of time in prison because I was in the RDAP program, a residential drug and alcohol program. The only thing in the feds that takes a year off your sentence, besides snitching. And I was in that program. It's a 9-month program, and then they take a full year off your sentence. And some weirdo moved in with me, big old horn rim glasses. It's like, hey, I'm like, oh man, hey, look, check it out. I just want to see what your charges are. That's it. You don't even have to show me your docket. You don't need to show me your pre-sentencing report, which spells out if you're a snitch. It's like about to go home. I'm like, I can look the other way for an informant, but I just can't. There's no way I'm living with some weirdo. And the next day, they called me into the office. They're like, Mr. Leone. Like, it's Leone. Mr. Leone, you're acting more like a convict than a patient. Take my year. Do not pass go. Do not collect 12 months off. One of the only times I remember really crying in prison was right then. Thinking I was going home in like 3 or 4 months and having to call my dad and be like, hey, Dad, I'm not coming home for 16, 17 months, whatever it was. I mean, I remember crying on that call. Like a bitch. And then at Lompoc, they also have a USP, which stands for United States Penitentiary. Now, USP that's like the highest security you can go. That's where the most crazy shit goes down. That's where riots pop off pretty frequently, stabbings, murders, people killing cops. I mean, they're hardcore. It's the worst of the worst. It's federal level 4 yards, essentially. And Lompoc was created right around the time that Alcatraz got shut down. I want to say that they created Lompoc, Marion, and USP Atlanta, but it may have been all at the same time. I know it's a very old prison, Lompoc. And that place used to be wild. The USP at Lompoc used to be a place you didn't want to go. You heard all sorts of crazy stories about that. In fact, the story that I heard about prison folklore, where, I don't know if you guys remember, I had written a short story for a Johnny Cash tribute anthology book with a bunch of different writers. And I wrote a story about some heroin addict that owed a lot of money, and they made him start going to visits and smuggle balloons of heroin in to pay off his debt. And the people that were making him bring balloons in were dope sick. He was trying to puke the balloons up. They wouldn't come out. They cut his stomach open, and they took balloons out of this freshly carved cavity of his bloody stomach. They took these bloody balloons out, and he sat there and bled to death in the cell. Now, I didn't ever see that, but this is one of those stories that I heard about happening at Lompoc. In the early 90s, mid-90s, that's where the Mexican Mafia was doing time. That's where the Aryan Brotherhood. There were so many high-power people at that USP, they were calling shots for the entire country. They were telling people what to do at Leavenworth from Lompoc. And they were calling shots. That was like what they call it in the state system is the White House, or like the person that has the keys for the entire system, not just that yard, not just that prison, not a set of prisons. The big homie for the entire system for Mexican white, whatever prison they're housed at that time is called the White House. I just paroled from Centinela. That's considered the White House nowadays. But Lompoc was at one point for the feds. And what happened is, right around the time they made USP Victorville, which was one of the worst USPs in the country when it first started, they had to bring a bunch of people from Lompoc, from the USP, to the new Victorville USP to open it. So they were like taking buses and buses of people from that penitentiary to the Victorville penitentiary. And what they did is they started phasing it out and turning that USP into medium security point inmates. So by the time that I was designated to go to Lompoc, it's still called a USP. It's United States Penitentiary Lompoc. Technically, it's, got the security measures of a level 4 high security federal pen, but they had phased out people with high points. But what had happened is a lot of the guys that were at Lompoc when they started phasing out the points didn't want to leave. You know, maybe they had family that was close. So you had a lot of really old school USP Lompoc convicts there at the pen. And, like, you know, like old Hells Angels that had been at the spot for like 30 years, shit like that. And it was run very smoothly. You know, that was probably the most proper prison I've ever done time at. It was just like people were staying in their lane. It wasn't all dramatic. And, you know, I'd always heard good things about it. I heard there were cable weights there, which they don't have at Victorville. They don't even have a pull-up bar or dip bar at Victorville. If you get caught doing pull-ups on the soccer goal, like, the cops will, like, talk shit to you. It's like that kind of place. They're just very, like, they don't want you doing, like, upper body workouts there. And at Lompoc, they had cable weights. They had a movie theater inside that kind of looked like the Shawshank Redemption movie theater. It looked more like an auditorium, I guess, at Lompoc. But the amenities there were something that people knew about. It was just, in the feds, they call it Lompoc. I don't know if I've mentioned that on a video, but it's really called Lompoc. It's in Santa Barbara County. I grew up in Santa Barbara. Lompoc is called Lompoc, but if you ask any convict about Lompoc, they'll call it Lompoc. It's just a collective mispronunciation of that particular place. So I was excited to be leaving. And what they do is they bring in that bullpen, they dress you out, you wear blue suede shoes, and you wear these like khaki elastic pants. It has like an elastic band, and it's like made out of, you know, what normal like prison jumpsuit material is made of, and they give you a white shirt. It's actually a pretty cool outfit for considering, you know, other transports I've been in. In state prison, they make you wear a paper suit. Last time I got, when I got transferred to state prison on my last term, I was kicking at the time, and I remember I sharted, and I shit in this paper suit, in this big old, you know, it looked like, you know, like an ink blotter test or something. Just this big butterfly shit stain was where my ass was on this paper jumpsuit, and everyone on the bus was laughing at me. That's a story for a completely different time. We're going to get to that point. But point is, in the feds, they give you a pretty cool outfit, and the whole process just to get dressed, and they, you know, they make you go through the body scanners where you have to put your chin on the thing that tests for metals. That whole thing takes forever. 5 hours. You know, maybe you start that process at 1 or 2 in the morning. You're leaving like by 7 or 8. You get on this bus. You're shackled like this. If you have high security points, they put you in a box. Like, they put the handcuffs in a box. So there's like this plastic box, and your hands are like this. And that's kind of how you know you're going to a USP or that you have high points. Now, I never asked the case manager what my points are, but when they put the cuffs on, they put me in a box. Which was like the first thing that kind of tripped me out. I'm like, hey, why am I in a box? He's like, shut up, get on the bus. I was like, all right. I get on the bus, and, you know, it's, sun's just coming up at this point. There's maybe like 5 or 6 people on the bus with me on that particular transport. But what happens is you start picking people up along the way. Maybe if they're like being held at a county jail, or if they're at another federal prison. So the whole process takes forever. Now, I knew I was going on the bus up to Lompoc, which is north of Los Angeles. That's one direction. Another direction is Terminal Island, Victorville, San Bernardino County. That's the direction I definitely don't want to be going, because that means I'm going to like USP Victorville, or I'm going back to FCI Victorville, whatever the case. You can barely see out of the federal bus. You know, it's like very hard to look out the windows, especially when it's not like, when the sun's not completely out. But I know Los Angeles enough to know that I'm going the wrong direction. And I'm like, whoa, wait, hey, CO. He's like, hey, stop doing that. I was like, hey, where are we going? He's like, we're going to USP Victorville. That's where you're going. All militant. I was like, oh my God. So now, of course, being the kind of person that I am, I'm just a completely over-analytical person. I'm sitting there just thinking about how hardcore Victorville is going to be. especially the USP. I'd never been to the USP, and it just, all the stories that I had heard, people getting their heads cut off and rolled down tiers, and people putting sheets around people's necks and tossing them off a tier like they're some sort of like weird, puppet, or I don't know. I couldn't really think of a good example there. But point is I was like really scared to go there. And we go to San Bernardino County Jail. That's the first stop that we make. We're picking people up. I have this uncomfortable see, normally you're cuffed like this with just handcuffs, the way you would be if you get arrested. Even though you usually have your hands behind your back. But, when they transport, they put your hands in front of you like this. You can move them. It's like, it sucks, but it is not a box where you're like this. It's torture. It's like waterboarding. It's insane. It's like the most uncomfortable. And then you're like on this turbulent bus, and you're just, and like someone's like falling asleep on you and like putting their head on your shoulder, and you're just like, can hardly even get them off of you. You just have this box on you. You're just like, Jesus, man. Horrible. We go to San Bernardino, and I wasn't sitting with anyone. Like I said, when the day started, there was only, 6, 8 people on the bus, maybe 6, I want to say. And when we got to San Bernardino, a bunch of people came, probably like 30. Some of them are wearing the paper jumpsuits. I guess they're going to state prison. Some of them are wearing the white khaki with, the blue suede shoes. So you kind of know, like, who's who, and, like, some people are wearing, like, San Diego County Jail jumpsuits. Some people are wearing Los Angeles County. You're just with this very eclectic mix of inmate population. They'll bring some girls on, but, they're, prison is not that kind to women. To some, but it's a fraction of a percent. Usually prison, makes women look like fossils, if that makes sense. I don't think that women were designed to do time like men were. I don't think men were either, but I think men have better adaptability than women. Women, in a lot of ways, just really can't handle it. And that's why I believe so many women snitch on their cases. They have a much higher percentage rate of cooperating than men do, even though it's getting scarily high for men as well. So these guys are like, doing sign language to the girls, and like the girls are giggling, and I'm just like, in my box. And this guy comes, sits next to me. He's got like long hair, some white guy. He's like super pale. And he looks at me, he's like, yeah, we ain't going to Victorville, are we? He's got some like southern accent. I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, that's what they told us. He's like, oh. He starts like glitching out. He's having like Vietnam-esque like flashbacks. He has like some PTSD. He's like, I was there. They are stabbing you. They are stabbing you if you don't make your bed correctly. Which sends me off on like a crazy trip inside my head, because I'm like the biggest dirtbag ever because of my ADD. Like, not on purpose, I just am. Forgetful, leave stuff out, whatever. The moves that I learned as a child, where my parents would be like, well, we're not buying you a toy unless you clean your room, Ryan. And I would just sweep all of my shit under the bed, all of my toys. And then I would try that same thing in prison, like under the cell, or under the bunk bed. And I would get in trouble by inmates and cops. You can't do that. All your belongings are just sticking out from under your bunk. So now I'm really scared that something bad's gonna happen. I'm doing 90 fucking days. Why are you sending me to a USP? And now I got this guy. He's an example of, he probably didn't have long hair. He probably aged 15 years looking since the last time he was there. He was on a violation too. He's barely able to communicate to me. I was like, oh my God, what happened to you there? And this is all I've heard of this place, is that it's crazy. Horrible, horrible things happen there. So we're on the bus, and the ride down there, it you go from like Los Angeles, so you're in an urban setting, and then you get in the outskirts of Los Angeles, you kind of go by Lancaster, and then it starts getting more and more desertscape, more and more desolate, you know, cactuses, stuff like that, these little towns. And they're probably supported by one, like, bathtub crank lab, you know, spots like that. Just really bad part of California. The desert part, you know, the Salton Sea. We're in the Inland Empire now. It's miles and miles and miles of desert and mountain, and just a really bad part of California. Almost as bad as Lompoc, Bakersfield, and Fresno. Sorry, guys. It's the truth. So we end up getting to Victorville. Now, you know, I had left there in 2010, and I was at the FCI. I was at the medium. Well, they say medium high. You'll hear people say that in the federal system. I don't know if that's true. BOP doesn't say there's a medium high. That's just like a term that inmates have coined. Oh, yeah, well, I think it's to like sound harder. So were you at the USP or the medium? I was at the medium high. People are like, oh. And like, nobody, it's just the kind of thing somebody says to try to sound tougher, I think. They said that the place I was at was a medium high. It was a very, very rough prison. And Oxford was a medium too, but Oxford was super kickback compared to Victorville. I thought I'd never see this place again. And you roll up, and it's very ominous. You know, you have these huge fences and coiling razor wire, and you've got gun towers and these big walls. That's at the USP. It's very foreboding. And, like, as soon as we get there, the guy next to me is almost having, like, exorcist-like, twitches. You know, he's freaking out. He's, like, dodging invisible bullets and shit. I'm like, hey, man. Hey! He's not talking. His eyes are, like, rolling back in his head. I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude. Definitely not making me feel any more comfortable about this. And, you know, we get there, and there's a women's camp, there's 2 medium FCIs, and then there's the USP, United States Penitentiary. And I think we go to the FCI 1 or 2 first, whatever, and what happens is the CO will come to the front of the bus, and he'll start reading out names, you know, like Gonzalez, Ramirez, Luciano, Leon, but he didn't call me. So everyone gets off on the medium. Then we go to the next spot, same thing. And like, now the bus is getting like emptied out. I'm like, oh my God. Because I was thinking, I'm like, there's no way they're going to send me to a USP for a non-conviction DUI when I wasn't at USP, when I paroled from Oxford. Then I started thinking, though, that open case thing, that spiked my points, and I got so many incident reports last time I was in prison just for dumb stuff. Making alcohol, dirty drug tests, nothing that would warrant putting me in some place where this guy next to me is having like a panic attack on the way there. Nothing that's like going into a straight war zone. But we finally get to the USP, and they call my name. I don't know if I'd ever been as scared as I was at that moment, because I already know how bad this spot is. You know, Victimville is what they call the medium. I don't even think they have a name for the USP, some nickname. It's like the penitentiary formerly known as Victimville. Now it's just some symbol of fucking death, murder, mayhem. Take a breath, and, you know, just like so many other parts of my life, the way that I cope with stuff is just go, all right, I'll turn this into an adventure. I'll play the part. I'll act hard with my colorful shop work tattoos and my, Southern California surfer way of talking. I'm probably going to get fucked up at this spot, and I know that. I get off the bus, and I'm looking at the other people that are getting off with me, and they're like the most hardcore-looking guys on the entire bus. Like, most of the guys on the bus before, like, short little paisas. I'm like the same size as them, so I'm like, yeah, we're like giving each other high five. Well, I'm not. I have my little box on, but you know what I mean. We're all just like, solidarity, camaraderie, because we're all short. I'm white, but I'm like just as short as like an Ewok looking Paisa. So I usually fit in with them. And then, you know, there's like a few like hardcore looking black dudes, like huge, muscular. They have like, you know, like fuck the feds on their cheek and like dollar signs and shit. And their Southsiders completely blasted, face tattoos. That's the new thing. We talked about that too. It's like convicts used to have the socks. If you had your legs blasted, you're a convict. That's what I have. It was my little, I'm going to be wild. I'm going to get both of my legs tattooed. I think I've shown them to you. It's like, you know, it's like girls kissing. I don't know if you can see that on the back. It's like it's the scene from Cruel Intentions. I was all wasted off Pruno. I'm like, 2 girls kissing on my calf. And dude's like, I got you. That's one I definitely, I don't want to say regret, but it's, you know, you get weird looks at the mall when you have some like softcore lesbian scene tattooed on the back of your leg, but really at this point it's whatever. It's just gonna suck when Nico gets a little older and I'm wearing shorts to like his Little League games and I have stuff like that. But at least I don't have swastikas. That would be much worse. So I've never been to this USP. I'm freaking out. And, you know, they bring us to this, like, big, like, this huge metallic door. It's like some castle door. I'm looking at these other guys, and I'm at least 8 inches shorter than anyone. Even the guy with PTSD and the long hair, he's just sitting there and, like, now we're at USP, and he's went from, like, having convulsions to like standing tall. I'm like, hey man, you're gonna be okay. He's like, shut the fuck up. I'm like, whoa. He's like in the mode now. I'm like, man, I really need to adapt. I really gotta just like play the part because I'm not that tough. I mean, I dope fiend Ray Loco, but so what? Ray Loco didn't have a shank the size of a butcher knife, and that's what that's what. Remember we talked about hands-off policy? That is USP Victorville at that moment. These big castle doors open, and like some like, you know, short CO like waddles out. He's like, hey guys, welcome to USP Victorville. And he brings us into the intake. So we go to like some drunk tank area, and they're taking our pictures, they're doing our thumbprints, same kind of stuff you do when you're leaving MDCLA, you have to do when you go to any new facility. It's just, I don't know. They have to have you like cataloged for that specific place as well. I'm sitting in the drunk tank and they call everybody. They're like, all right guys, you know, we're moving to the next phase where they're going to start housing us. They move every single person except for me and PTSD guy. And I'm like looking at him, I'm like, hey, you think those cops think we're bitches? That's why they're not letting us go to the housing unit? And he looks at me, and now he's back to PTSD mode because it's just me. Doesn't say anything. His lips just quivering. He's all scared. And CO comes in. He's like, hey guys, you're not going to the USP. You're here. You're going to the transit unit. I go, what does that mean? He's like, oh, it's just a unit. You're closed off from the other USP population. You're just with people that are on a layover waiting to go to another prison. I was like, oh my God. Whew. I was like, man, you know, I'd gone my whole Fed career without having to go to a USP. I certainly wasn't trying to do one then. I don't think I'm cut like that. I don't think, I mean, you know, people are always like, I can do time anywhere. I don't care. You know, I'll be the only white guy with 150 Haitian dudes, and I'll do just fine. Well, that's not true, first of all. And I'm just keeping it real, you know. I was petrified to go to a USP from everything I'd heard about it. So they bring us to this transit unit, and now I'm seeing the short Paisas again. Not the ones from the bus, but like new ones. There's a bunch of like chomo-looking white guys, and I'm just like, now this is my people. Thank God I'm back here. And you know, they're like, okay, you know, we're going to give you your cell arrangements. And the CO's like kind of telling us, there's probably like 50 guys in the room. A lot of them had already been there. Some of them were coming from a different direction, I think, so they had just gotten dropped off there as well. And, you know, of course, it was me and PTSD dude. He was white. And, you know, the CO's telling us pretty much how it works there. He's like, listen, you guys can come out for 1 hour a week. In that time, you have to choose between using the phone, watching television, or showering. Any questions? I'm like, hey, how long can someone get stuck at a place like this? He's like, well, the longest I've seen is 1 year. I'm like, well, I'm only doing 90 days. He's like, you may very well do it all right here. I'm like, in a place where I only get 1 hour out of the cell a week? Do we get commissary? He's like, you can order 1 bag of coffee once a month. I was like, what? This is like some... What the fuck? This is like disciplinary. It's like, hey, none of that subversive stuff. Whoa. So, you know, they give you a courtesy shower when you get to this transit place because, you know, you're just on a bus. But literally like 1 or 2 minutes. And then, you know, there were a couple guys that had been there before. And, you know, some white guys, they came up to me like, hey, bro, you know, I'm Senior Bam Bam from Oxnard. How you doing? I'm like, how does this place work? They're like, hey, check it out. Look, go take a shower. Do it really quick. You're going to have to bird bath while you're here, which means that you're just like, you basically get naked in front of your cellie and you're just like, you know, you put soap all over you and then you use water out of the sink to like splash yourself and you know, clean the soap off. It's pretty cool. I don't know. I haven't done it in the free world yet, but something that you definitely are going to do if you ever do prison time. Bird baths in front of your cellie. It's mellow. And this guy had told me, this other white guy that had been there, he told me that jump into the courtesy shower, 2 minutes, scrub off, be real quick. He's like, it's ice cold anyway, so you're not going to want to like sit in there. It's not some like, you know, it's not something you're going to enjoy anyway. And then as soon as you're done showering, run into that little room. And it's like a library. He's like, grab as many books as possible. And this is something that the cops didn't even tell us in the little orientation thing that they had just done. You know, it's like I was smart enough to try to figure out exactly what I needed to do. And so I go get my cell arrangement, and once again, they're trying to sell me up with a paisa. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. You know, this is before I can take the shower, before I can go get the book out of the little room. I'm like, listen, I'm just not doing it. CO's like, excuse me? I said, I'm not going to sell up with a Mexican. He's like, oh, we got a racist here. I said, listen, I'm not racist. I'm saying all low, because I don't want like the racist white people to hear me. I'm like, look, bro, I'm not racist. I just don't want to get beat up when I go to Lompoc. He's like, well, you don't have any choice. Go sell up with the Mexican. I'm like, oh my God. So I'm trying to be like all Captain Politic, like some fucking Peckerwood superhero or something. And I just end up selling up with the paisa. Pretty much going against everything that I just told you in the last couple videos that I was on. And this is my slow transformation into just caring less and less about what the prison politics was. And a lot of that was, you know, like I said, I just didn't want to go get beat up at the yard I was going to. I don't want people to find out, and then I'm like getting milk in the chow hall and I get stabbed in the back. Undesirable situation there. So I sell up with this paisa. I mean, I don't even see him. I just know that it's a paisa because the name, it's like Rodrigo Gonzalez the 7th or whatever. And I go shower, do my little quick shower, and then I run to the library hoping I'm going to find something good. And of course, just like most prison libraries, Star Trek The Next Generation novels with the last 70 pages missing, 50 Shades of Grey, that somebody's like used lead pencil and like, you know, underscored all the perverted stuff. It's some real sicko shit. Or like, you know, there's like people gangbanging with like little like graffiti things on all the books, and then you got like some Obviously, some white guy writes, "Get a life, man." And then, like, someone else like, "What?" And they're, like, talking shit on little notes that have been on the book. It's bizarre. So, I grabbed... I can remember what I grabbed. I grabbed some Sue Grafton novels. She's a detective novelist from Santa Barbara, and she writes about this fictitious town based on Santa Barbara. So those are always kind of cool, but they're, like, cutesy romance novels. It's like, I don't know. You ever, like, meet someone that's just really fake? Like, it's kind of like that's what her voice is like in those books. It's the kind of thing I just can't read all day, every day. I think I found some Stephen King books. I got some Twilight. I got some James Patterson. They didn't have shit that I like. But I did get a bunch of books, and I brought this big stack back to the cell. Now, my cellie's in there, and he's this paisa. And I'm like, hey, I'm Ryan. Stick out my hand, and, he starts speaking Spanish really fast. Like, and I don't know Spanish. I'm like, listen, man, hablo poquito español. Me llamo Ryan. And he just looks at me, he's like, swaying, and goes, Simón! Which means yeah. It's like a slang word for yeah. Spanish slang. Simón. But he yelled it at me. I was like, what the fuck? Great. Not only am I breaking my little political ideology that I swore I would never do, I'm living with some fucking J-Cat paisa for God knows how long. I might be stuck in there with him for the next 68 days or however much time I had left. Horrible. This guy was the most disrespectful person ever. They give you, like, very limited food when you're at a place like this. And, like, the best thing they give you is, like, this little single-serving cereal thing that's, like, in a little plastic bowl. It has, like, a lid on it. And, usually when you're in transit like that, you're starving. I was hungry, and, like, dinner wasn't for, like, another 5 hours. And he had this stack of these little cereals that, like, went from the floor up to, like, this 10-foot high ceiling. Completely stacked. Like, he'd been there for, like, it's like he was some POW. He'd been there for years. I'm, like, trying to commute. I'm, like, rubbing my stomach. I'm, like, hey, por favor. I'm, like, handing it to him, and he's just, Simón! I'm like, oh, my God, dude. Why do I always get in these horrible situations in prison? Of course, I have the top bunk. I can't even communicate to this guy that whatever. So I'm just on the top bunk, and I'm opening my Sue Grafton cutesy. What is the protagonist's name? It's like Cutesy Malone or something. I don't know. It's something absurd like that. And, like, you're just sitting there with your legs crossed in one of the hardest prisons in the country reading some cutesy romance detective novel. Some whodunit. Just kind of losing it. And then they bring you chow and they slide it through this, through the meal slot. And you eat it. It's never enough when you're in the hole or we're in some confined situation like this. I have no idea how long I'm going to be at this place, and this guy is pacing around. Simón! Only word he really says, except for when I first went in there, he went on some, like, some rant in Spanish. And he's saying the Simón thing all day. And it doesn't stop. Like, after lights out, I'll just be, like, sitting there reading, because they keep the lights on outside the cell. This is one of those situations where you can't turn the light on and off in your cell. They do that for you because it's kind of, I think it was intended to be like the shoe. It's the hole, I think. A lot of holes, they have to flush the toilet for you and turn the lights on and off for you. And I could still sit in bed and read because they never turn the lights off fully outside of the cell, so you get this very, like, small sliver of light. It really hurts and strains your eyes. And this guy's just, Simón! All night. 4 in the morning. I'm waking up startled after I passed out reading Cutesy Malone or whatever her name is. And I'm like, this goes on for, I think I'm at this place for like 5 or 6 days. You know, and at one point they had let me out with our little hour where we had to like pick between TV, phone, and shower. Of course, I took the shower first. I had to. I hate not showering. It's the worst. I mean, I was doing the bird bath thing naked in front of Simon. But there's nothing like a real shower after you've been stuck in a cell like that. And I tried to call my ex-wife once, and she didn't answer, which drove me nuts. So now I'm back in the cell. I'm reading these bullshit books. Simon. I'm like, ugh. And I'm tripping on what she's doing. Trying to count the number of days I've been busted, multiply it by the number of dicks that she possibly has sucked at this point, and it's driving me nuts. Finally, they let me go. Like after about 6 days, no, they don't let me go, but they call my name to do the transfer. I'm stoked. You know, I'm so happy. Because I'm talking to people out the door, and, you know, white guys are like, I've been here for 46 months or something. I think they said weeks. But, yeah, I mean, there have been people there that have been there like a year. You know, somehow they got lost in the bowels of the system. And, you know, people are freaking me out. So I'm like, oh, no, I'm doing 90 days. I'm probably going to be gone, like, by next week, I'd imagine. They're like, yeah, right, bro. Hurry up and wait. Classic Fed line. But they call my name, and I'm just, you know, I'm skipping in joy, just like, later, weirdo, Simone guy. And I left, hoping, praying that there were no white guys going to Lompoc with me that were going to, like, be like, hey, he was sold up with another race. Let's stab him. So we roll up to Lompoc. You know, we get on a bus. We go all the way to Lompoc, which is just north of Santa Barbara. And Santa Barbara's my hometown. It's bittersweet going through Santa Barbara. You have to go through Santa Barbara. You have to, you know, go on the 101, so you see the Pacific Ocean on its side. It's gorgeous, very picturesque. There's mountains on one side, ocean on the other, and you're just on this road, and then you go through Santa Barbara, this town I grew up in, and I was sitting there, and I'm just like, you know, when the sun's out, you can actually see out the window. You just can't when it's like, when there's not a lot of sun for some reason. I think it's because it's like tinted, like sunglasses. And we get to Lompoc, and again, you know, it's the same thing. Horrible, long, 13, 14-hour travel day. We get to Lompoc. We have to do all this annoying intake. Psychiatrist comes and asks if we want to kill ourselves. And I'm like, well, I didn't before you made me travel for 14 hours. And she's like, ha, 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 suicide humor, right on. And then, like, they give me a medical clearance, and, like, I'm just exhausted. And I'm tripping out on this prison because it's so old, and it really looks more like something you'd see in a movie. These big, triple-tier stacked, very small cells, you know, and they, like, press a button, and all the doors open at the same time. You know, it has, like, it's like on some track. Like, everyone comes out, and fucking sex riot pops off. When you have to take a shit in these cells, like, you have to put a sheet up because the door stays open. It's the weirdest thing. You're, like, sitting there taking a shit. You can fully hear people's conversation that are playing, like, pinochle and on a table that's, like, 4 feet away from you. You just have this thin sheet right next to it. It's really weird when you're beating off, too. You know? And you're, like, beating off, and you hear some fight going down, and you get distracted. So they bring me to this place. I think it was J unit, K unit, I don't know. I forget what it was called. I wasn't there that long. And I get there, and it's count time. So everybody's locked in their cell. And go up to the CO. I'm like, hey, I'm Ryan Leone. It's my registered number, 555-14112. Do you know where my housing is? I have my linen. And he's like, yeah, you're in cell. I was on the second floor tier. So I'm like, all right, cool. I just wanted to get in a cell and go to sleep. That's it, you know? Maybe shower and then go to sleep. I didn't feel like socializing. I go up to the cell. He can open that manually, you know, when it's count like that. And another paisa. Now, you know, I settled up with the paisa at MDCLA because they told me I could. I set up with the paisa at USP Victorville transit holding place because, well, you know, if I didn't, they were going to put me in the hole at USP Victorville. And I felt like it was just a better option to do that. I mean, hopefully I get away with it. But now I'm at USP Lompoc. It's known for having high-level people there still to this day. And I'm definitely not going to make a misstep like that. So I refuse. I say, nope, not doing it. Sorry. Pice is looking at me like all like hurt that I don't want to sell up with him. Like, oh my God, what a redneck. You don't want to sell with me? Cop's like, what do you mean you don't want to sell up with him? I'm like, dude, I'm not selling up outside of my race. It's not how I was educated in prison. It's not how I was schooled. I'm not doing it. Sorry. You can take me to the hole if you want to, but I'm not selling up outside of my race. Not doing it. And he's like, listen, if you don't sell up in there, he's like, you just have to sell up in there for count. And then we'll figure out some other housing arrangement. Like, I can understand you don't want to sell up with a Mexican, but you're going to mess up everyone's program. People have workout routines, and everything's going to get shut down, and the lieutenant's going to come here with the captain, and they're going to take you to the hole, and it's going to screw up everybody's program, and then everyone's going to hate you. Your first day of school. Is that what you want? Go in that cell. I'm like, well, he told me. All right, go in the cell. You know, the Pice was cool. He gave me a radio. He's nice. I felt really bad. And he spoke English, and I explained to him like what the deal was. I was like, hey, like the only other spot I've done time in California is Victorville. And there, they would have stabbed me over something like this. And he's like, no, I get it. You're good. I was like, all right. He's like, look, when the doors crack, the white repa will come talk to you, and you get it worked out. I'm like, all right, perfect, cool. So, you know, stand-up count's like an hour and a half. You know, you just have to stand when they say, all right, A range, 4 o'clock stand-up count, lights on. Then you have to stand in the middle of your cell with the lights on. Sometimes if I had like a funny cell and we just wanted to fuck with the cops, we'd hold hands, you know, while we're standing there. So they'd like be, you know, because they walk by very quickly and they just see us, like, we'd have our shirt off holding hands. And they would just be like, oh, Leone, always up to some funny shit. It's pretty funny, actually. But, so anyway, after they open the doors, I go out and I'm standing there, you know, waiting for the white rep to come talk to me. Because that's, you know, the Pice is like, listen, I'll go tell him that a new white dude just landed here. He'll come. Because they can't see that I came in there. That's not how this place was set up. It's triple tiered. You can't like look out your cell and like see where I was when I came in. So I don't even think they know that I'm there. Sometimes, like at Victorville, they'll tell like the reps, like the shot caller for the unit or for the yard, like how many white people are coming in. They'll tell the person that has the keys for the Southsiders, et cetera, so that you can like have a kitty, which is like a bunch of commissary, hygiene stuff, just to help you get on your feet. Everyone pitches in a little bit for the new white guy. You know, there's like solid stuff like that that goes on at certain prisons. And I'm just sitting there waiting for the kitty, which I know is coming, and waiting to talk to the rep. Now, they have to come up these, like, you know, these staircases. And so this guy walks up, and he walks up to me and is like, hey, what's up, man? I guess I'm the shot caller here. I have this unit. My name's Lake. And I look at him. Now, he's aged. Prison has not been kind to this guy, and time has not been kind to him either. He is sun-weathered. His skin looks like leather because he's been out in the sun all day, every day for the last, you know, I don't know, I met him in 2009. That's how long he'd been busted. He'd been in prison 7 years. All day, every day sun exposure. Been in California the whole time. And I'm like, you don't recognize me? He's like, nope. I go, Jamie, you don't know who I am? You don't remember Ryan Leone from Victorville? You fucking checked in on me? Remember when I vouched for your dad? You don't remember that? He's like, I think we need to go in the cell. I said, yeah, I remember last time we did that. You checked in on me fucking twice. I think we got to do more than just go in a cell, Jamie. And you know I can't continue the story at this point. We will get into what happens with Jamie Lake his reemergence, this piece of shit, in the next second time in federal prison video. Please like, comment, dislike, subscribe, leave bad comments. I'm not blocking anyone anymore. Say whatever you want. It's a free-for-all. And for all of those that support me, check out my patreon.com/Ryan Leone. I love, appreciate you guys. Palabra.